and that's why I have on the back my little piece there. Okay, and somebody here was swearing. They were saying son of a bitch, and that's going to remind me of a story that I'm going to tell you about education. Yeah. She knows it already. So the little boy comes home and he says, the mother says, what did you learn in school today? And he says, 1 plus 1, son of a bitch, 2. 1 plus 2, son of a bitch, 3. 1 plus 3, son of a bitch, 4. The mother goes to the school and says, why is my son swearing with his addition? And the teacher says, I don't know. The way we teach it is 1 plus 1, the sum of which is 2. Okay, so it started with this. Those of us were, all of us wonderful people here with all of this technology, and we didn't have the lens cap off the lens. So that's what was holding us up here, folks. There we go. Okay, I finally said, that's funny looking lens there. So we got it to work, which I'm very glad for. So, we have some opening announcements. We have the room until 2, but our meeting will end at 1 o'clock or shortly thereafter, we'll see. We have a whole bunch of announcements. And but before we do the announcements, let's introduce people who are here. People who want to be introduced. And one of them is Robert Sturdivant.
Hey, Robert.
All right. Oh, I love this event. It's going to be a really good presentation today, too. Of course, we have the action on Saturday downtown, climate change. And then again on Monday, International Workers' Day, we have a presentation down at Washington Park at 5 o'clock. And there's going to be some very dynamic speakers. There'll be some music. The choral group Muse will sing. So if the weather cooperates, it's shaping up to be a nice, fun demonstration. That'll be May 1st. International Workers' Day.
Can you take somebody take the microphone around? Liz, did you have some announcements?
Tomorrow evening, the North Central Dems is having their event honoring Todd Fortune.
I got my ticket.
Be there or be square.
My golden ticket. Marlene has 3 announcements. Marlene now, right? Marlene now?
Yes. Marlene is older now.
Yeah.
Older, hopefully wiser, a little more crusty around the edges. I have a few, they're not apps. See, you asked me to help you with that. I told you I'm not tech savvy. They are text applications. One is called Stance. If I can.
It's going to be in the newsletter, right?
It will be in the newsletter. It is a way to leave voicemails for your members of Congress. Because if you've been trying, sometimes you just can't get through. Sometimes the phones just don't even ring. So there's Stance, and I can't find the number right now, but I will search.
It'll be in the
newsletter. We also have, it's called ResistBot, which sends faxes to your members of Congress.
Whoa.
And it will, yes, it's for text messaging. The number for that is 50409.
It will be on our...
Also in the newsletter. And then there was one for gerrymandering, and this one is just for state of Ohio. The number is 90975, and what it does is you pledge to collect a certain number of signatures for a petition to end gerrymandering. So I will put all these numbers in the newsletter, and let's keep resisting.
Yes. Any other, Monica?
I'm
Upcoming
Monica, I'm the
meeting.
evening portion of this show. We have next week with us a good friend of mine named Fabricia Duell. She's from Brazil, and she will be discussing her route to citizenship and the cost of it, the government ineptitude, and the technical fallibilities of the government as well. The week, 2 weeks after that, we will also have Lynn Punzak, a lawyer, who will be talking to us about women's issues, job discrimination, what was it exactly?
And the place is?
And it is at Red Rose Pizzeria, 5915 Hamilton Avenue,
It's in the newsletter.
at 6 p.m. Hope you can be there.
And that reminds me, if you are new to our organization and you are not receiving the newsletter, please raise your hand and someone will pass out the paper so that you will be receiving our newsletter and a pen.
Anybody else have an announcement?
More announcements.
I'm Joe Salvato from Springdale. About maybe a month ago, 6 weeks ago, I handed out a flyer for Ohio Citizens Action. I don't know if you all know much about them, but they are they've been around since 1977. They are very much involved with the environment, politically, in the state of Ohio. I actually got associated with them. I moved here from Chicago and reestablished my network, and I found these people. I'm very, very impressed with them. They've given a lot of good connections to a lot of folks in this area. What they are doing is they're in final week of a fundraising for a used car. Their goal was $10,000, it's like about $8,000, so they're $2,000 short, so we're asking for donations. It will be in the newsletter. And what they want to do, they are big time in Cleveland and Cincinnati, and they are trying to reach out to the 33 congressional districts in Ohio, I believe, and they want to go to all these districts and get environmental stuff on the ground. So, check out the newsletter.
Thank you.
And bring
Last
yourself
Friday.
here. Announcements.
Last Friday was the release of the Corv Guide 2017-18. This is the complete guide of farmers market, organic farms all around the tri-state area. I have left back there on the countertop a whole bunch of them. It's a great resource. You'll be able to see farms and tables, so it's available for all of you to grab a copy.
Susan.
I did the Resist Bot. I just started doing it and it's really fun, and it takes a little while getting used to a robot because they're very literal. You have to follow the instructions,
Okay.
but it's very, very easy to do.
Well, if the Russians can do it to us, we can do it to ourselves, right?
Yeah. Okay, my name is Monica, and I forgot to add one thing. I've now become the distributor of these signs. I am now the purveyor of these signs. I have to order in a batch. If you would like to have 1, 2, or 3, I'm selling them for 10 right now. You can sign up so I know how many I can get you. And I will be in touch with you. I'll bring them to this meeting. Thank you.
Required payroll for next Tuesday is a button that says, or a sticker that says, "I voted." Don't forget.
Oh. Remember, the voting is already open. Early voting, you can go and vote anytime.
I attended the Ohio Democratic Party's boot camp for volunteers last
Good for
Saturday
you.
in Columbus. Did anybody else there go? I know Marlena went. Marlene is on the running for office track. I'm on the neighborhood organizing track, and they also have another digital advocacy track. They are going to have another training here in Cincinnati, so if you haven't signed up, it's very good training, and I was surprised at how many people across the state of Ohio were in the running for office track. I was very heartened by that.
Great. Any other announcements? Introductions. Sid, everybody knows Sid. Sid is the little bit, our youngest Democrat. His mother is Deb. And Sid is very responsive. Watch him during the meeting. I mean, he actually watches the speaker and looks at people who are talking. He's amazing. I'm gonna have him run for office. Okay, any other announcements? Last ones, last take. Okay, with that, I'm going to introduce our speaker and I'm going to do a strip. You ready?
Tip jars of fun. Biology.
Okay.
What's that?
What is that?
The last time I went to the doctor, my nurse practitioner said, there's an organ missing. Can you, I'm going to test my nurses to see if the nurses can spot what organ is missing on my shirt. Anyway, and with that, I'm going to introduce the head of my union,
Yeah.
Cincinnati Federation of Teachers. This is going to be Julie Sellers. And she has been an amazing force in the city, and she has really worked, and the rumor is that they have finally got a contract for next year. Is that true?
Well, we're on our way to ratification. We got a tentative agreement last night. The board reviewed it, and they said that they would be willing to move forward with that. So we've been negotiating since December, every weekend and several times during the week. And so hopefully it goes through the whole ratification process successfully.
So here is we all need to be advocates for our teachers.
Yes.
But our one person who has really stood out in the community as an advocate for our teachers in the city is Julie Sellers.
Thank you, Alberta. I was just at a legal training with AFT last week, and the president of AFT was saying, whenever we want to know what is really great for public education, AFT, we always look at what Cincinnati is doing. Because Cincinnati is always a role model in so many areas that they look to see what we are doing here, and many times those same things are then replicated in other cities. I will say that sometimes you have to leave your own city to hear about good things about what's happening in your city. And I never go anywhere nationally where I don't have people talking about, oh, I heard about community learning centers in Cincinnati. We wish we had those. Oh, I heard about your great new schools that your taxpayers funded and rebuilt every school. It's unbelievable that we are the only urban district in the whole country that has a brand new facility master plan, and every child is going to school in a safe and healthy environment, and they are not in classrooms with leaking ceilings, broken windows, and moldy walls. So that is something that CPS, our Cincinnati citizens, should be very proud of with the schools that we have here in Cincinnati. I do have a video, and I hope that Alberta, but I'm gonna do a little bit of an introduction. So I just want to start today and talk to you about having support of everyone in this room and your family and your friends on joining teachers and taking a stand against the pro-privatization agenda that our federal government is imposing on states across the country. You all know about Betsy DeVos, and you have heard everything about what Trump wants to do. But we are going to need, public education is the foundation of our democracy. And if we allow our public education to be taken over through privatization, it will be the downfall of our entire country. There would be no transparency, there would be no, they would not have transparency about curriculum, there would be no guidelines about curriculum. They could do whatever they wanted to set standards for science curriculum per se, and go and start teaching creationism, which many private schools currently do. You can go right across the bridge into Kentucky and go to the Creation Museum and the art, and you can see the type of curriculum that schools buy and they are legitimate. And they tell parents, how do you push back on science that your kids are learning in public education? There is a whole agenda out there to undermine not just teachers and not just cut salaries of teachers, but also what students are learning and how they are learning that. There's a huge push to get rid of teachers, and they are in countries that are very poor all over the globe, where they have tablet learning, and they are creating it with tons of hedge fund money so that this can be the growth model across even industrialized nations. So our union is going to be joining with millions of like-minded Americans by taking a stand on May the 1st at the May Day rally. And we want to let Washington know that these are our public schools. They don't belong to the government. They are our schools. These are our students, and these are our neighbors who attend these schools. So it's really important when you hear things about public education that you stop and think, what is the agenda that they're really trying to move here, and what is it that they're trying to break? I have a quick video I want to show. It's only 2 minutes, but I know you're all going to love it. So let me just get this up and running.
How are you? So very good.
I need sound.
It's okay.
Hey, while we got a break, I just want to introduce City Council candidate Michelle Dillingham. I volunteered one Saturday forward, got a lottery ticket, won $500. That's not really true, but it's a beautiful day, and so I'd encourage you. She's a great candidate.
Put it next to the speaker.
It's okay, kids said we're gonna try to save your schools. Right. We'll try to get it up and running and play it at the end, but it is a really powerful, it is a really. Can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay, it is a very powerful video, and I will try to get it up and running and play it at the end. But how many of you called about not giving the nomination to Betsy DeVos? Everybody. It was the #1 issue. She is so unqualified and so destructive. But yet, they still use a tactic that they have never used before to come in and break the tie. And across the country, people felt like they were rejected. They felt like they were not listened to. But you can see that the president's aggressive anti-immigration executive orders, they affect our students. Every day there are students in our community who are coming to school who are afraid. They're afraid to come to school because they're afraid that their parents will be picked up while they're at school. They're afraid that they're going to go home from school and not be able to have a parent who's going to look after them. They're fearful every day and every night. And even though CPS, they have signed a policy to be a sanctuary school, like we have signed a policy for sanctuary city, we also know that we have seen people who have been picked up and deported for no reason, no apparent reason. Maribel was sent back just last week. She's been here, she has children here, she has a special needs child here, and she was sent back and her children were not. So it's what they were saying. This is going to cost us trillions and trillions of dollars, and it's not going to have the impact of what people believe will happen. It's all reactionary.
How is it costing trillions?
Because they have to pay for all of those extra ICE people who are going out. They have to pay for the deportation. They have to pay for those children who are left here because she was a working mother. She's not paying taxes. Her children are still here, and so we have to support those children because now they're going to be in the system without a parent. There's many costs involved when you separate families. That's not even counting the psychological cost to those children. So I get angry when I think about leaders who are pursuing this type of agenda, and it's so drastic. I know that it is against what every person in this room stands for. But we must all come together, and we have some really easy actions that we can get support from the community. We must reclaim the promise of public education. I think that you will all agree that we are at a crossroads in public education and within our community. In Cincinnati, we just passed the preschool promise and the new money levy in November at 60+%. That is the community coming together saying, we support our schools, we support our children. It is not support for vouchers and charters and privatization. So we want to stop a predatory voucher system that would undercut all that we've worked for. We want to roll back progress on, we want to make sure that everybody still has access to health care. And I know that it's upsetting to think about, but we can still make positive changes as we move forward. And we have to continue to work with the school district to make our schools sanctuary schools. They have passed that policy. And we have to have a plan to fight back and reclaim our schools and protect our neighbors. The time is now to push back on the Trump administration and Betsy DeVos. Violence in schools towards marginalized students is becoming more common by the day. We see where there is bullying, not just in schools, but going to and from schools. The Trump administration is pushing an anti-immigrant agenda aggressively. The last attempt to dismantle the Affordable Care Act failed, but another threat will be emerging any day now. So it's every single day there's an impact to working Americans. And so we want to have the May Day event to be as strong as the Women's March. We want it to be as strong as the March with Science. We want it to be visible in the community so that everybody knows we support our schools, we support the whole agenda against privatization. So what is Workers' Day, or May Day anyway? Many people say to me, isn't that the dance around the maypole? Or it's a ceremony for the Holy Mary. But May Day is the International Workers' Day, and it's for workers not just in the U.S. but throughout the world. It's international. And the brief origin of May Day is in 1886. Yes, workers were still having problems 150 years ago. 300,000 workers who worked in businesses across the U.S. walked off their jobs to protest for an 8-hour workday, because before that there was no limit to how long people could be made to work in a single day. So if you work for wages, or if you're retired and you still know people and family who work for wages, and you support workers, then May 1st is your day. It's not just a teacher's day, it's every worker's day. And so we would like for all workers to come out. And CFT is closely aligned with the policies of CEJC, which is the Cincinnati Educational Justice Coalition. Michelle Dillingham was a facilitator for several years. Robert is now stepping in. So Michelle Dillingham and Robert have been leading this. We have done so many things with them to stop the takeover of public education. I'm sure that all of you remember that big headline. Scott Farmer and the Farmer Family Foundation was going to put $25 million into an account to help poor children in our city. To this day, he's done very little, but his agenda was what? Expansion of charters. Every charter that has come in, we have investigated, and every charter was below what our schools are. So we have been able to push back. I've even heard that Scott Farmer said, what's with these people? Why do they know about all of this? They were really surprised that we were able to push back. Every charter so far that they brought to the city, they have not been able to get opened. So this is where we need your help. The May Day rally is going to be on May 1st at Washington Park. There's going to be rallies all over the country in thousands of cities. There's going to be a huge rally in Washington, D.C. And the one here is going to be not in Washington, Washington Park at 6 p.m. And we're going to be committing a day of action not only here in Cincinnati, but nationally. And so I'm asking everyone who cares about the foundation of our democracy to sign a commitment card saying that you will join us on May the 1st. I hope that everyone will join us. I do have several flyers, because when people say, well, I think my child would do better if they had a voucher. You know, those are private schools and they do better. We have teachers in every single private and parochial school in the city. They don't have strong curriculum. They don't always have, they pay so little that they are having really a time with shortages of teachers. They have a lot of uncredentialed teachers. They don't have enough funding for strong professional development for their teachers. It's just that when education is expensive, and if they are for profit, they siphon it off from the top for profits, or they just don't get enough money to support it. Yes?
Are people catching on to this? Are these parents and
They
these
are
children,
catching
are they
on.
beginning to understand?
And actually, this year, there are 1,000 less children in charter schools in Cincinnati than last year. People are coming back, and I give a lot of that to, now there's accountability in those schools. The charters are starting to have a little bit more accountability, not enough. You still see scandals and corruption and theft every single day somewhere in Ohio. Ohio charter schools are the worst in the country. There is not a charter school in this city I would send my child to. And both of my children went to CPS. They were CPS graduates. They both went to college. They were both successful in college. And that's a common story. I do have flyers that I will pass out. If you have people who want to talk about vouchers, there is a lot of research on vouchers. Vouchers are not something new, and they have data and documentation because now the vouchers also have to take tests, and they compare where those children are at that school with the voucher in comparison to when they were in CPS, because that is what is creating a lot of the mobility churn. And Katie will pass these out. But the more that a child moves schools, the more likely they are to fall behind. When kids start in CPS and stay with CPS, they are reading successfully by 3rd grade. When kids stay with CPS and they stay with our curriculum, they're more successful. It's the kids who are constantly moving and jumping back and forth. In the Fordham Foundation, which is a very conservative think tank, they did a study on mobility. And the results were really shocking because they thought that the mobility they couldn't really understand the mobility. And they found out that the charter schools are actually what is causing a big part of that churn. Kids leave, they have attendance problems at this school, they leave, they go to a charter, the charter pushes them out before the testing, they come back to the Catholic schools or the public schools, and sometimes then they'll take a voucher, they'll go to a Catholic school, the Catholic school says, no, you can't stay here, and so instead of addressing the problem with the parent, or the parent addressing the problem around the attendance, then those kids just keep falling further and further behind. So I have a whole 2-pager on comparing vouchers to public education. It's all research-based. Everything is footnoted at the bottom so that when you make a statement, you know that it's research-based and it's something that is accurate. It is not alternative facts. I also have a flyer that you can share with your organizations, and it is for the May 1st of building schools, not walls. But I would like to have everybody sign a pledge that you will join educators to support professionals, healthcare professionals, students, parents, community partners, to make our voices heard. And there is a card, a pledge card that you can fill out. And I would really appreciate if we could get those back today, but we would really like for you to remind your family and friends, come on May 1st. It's going to be a great event. Music's going to sing. They have a beautiful rendition of a song on immigration, and it's just beautiful to hear. There will be several speakers. They're going to be dynamic speakers. And the last thing that I'm asking is, let me explain to everyone. Everybody heard about the Friedrichs case that was going to go to the Supreme Court. It was going to be a national right to work. Scalia passed away suddenly, and it was a tie. But let me just tell you, Gorsuch was nominated. He is our new Supreme Court Justice, and he is probably more conservative than Scalia and very anti-worker. And there is a case that is going to be heard this year. It's called the Janice case. And so it's probably even worse than the Friedrich's case. So we still are going to be fighting to prevent right to work. Right to work is wrong, and it's, even if you're not in a union, it has a negative impact on you. It has a negative impact on you, and you say, why is that? Well, if you have children or grandchildren in the schools, those teachers are not going to have as strong of a union. Unions don't just negotiate bread and butter issues, they negotiate working conditions. They have safer schools, better professional development, they have stronger programming. If you look nationally at the top schools in the country, they are the strongest unionized states in the country. The very bottom are the right to work. Right to work hurts everyone, including the children who are in our schools. If you work in a job like the steel workers, you're more likely, if you are not unionized, they can make you go up a ladder or whatever they go up, a crane, and they, even if it isn't safe, you can't say no. The injuries and deaths are much greater when you have right to work. So I am asking if everybody can to sign this pledge. And there is, if you want to see the resolution that we have for May Day, that's also included with this clipboard that we'll pass around. Do we want to try the video again? It's really good, even if we start it over. It's only 2 minutes. I'll start it, and in the meantime, we can pass these around, sign the pledge cards, sign the right to work pledge. We will be turning those into the AFL-CIO, and I will take any questions, but I want to see if we can get this up and running.
Anybody need a pen? Jerry found the missing organ. What was it? Pancreas.
Oh,
Jerry!
Cannot be without that. While Julie's doing this, I just want to make sure that you understand the effect of the vouchers and the charters on Cincinnati Public
Can
Schools.
you all get, Katie,
Okay.
can you get the, lights?
103 million. 103 million. Thank you.
It's about workers in general. There will be multiple speakers, and those speakers will be, what are some of the topics, Robert, that they're going to have besides just education?
5 to 15, public schools, right to work.
Microphone, yeah, Robert.
All right, the May Day celebration will be an action to, you'll be able to raise your voice in favor of public school, against the fight to privatize. We're going to try to highlight Black Lives Matter, we'll highlight Fight for 15, and we'll highlight the idea that the mass deportations are not good for our society. We'll try to focus on the way that the workplace helps the public school and the way that the public school helps the workplace. And that'll be our message.
So there's going to be many topics. Are there any questions? Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry that I arrived late, and I missed your introduction, so I wanted to find out more about your union specifically.
I work for this, I'm the president of the Cincinnati Federation of Teachers, and we are the union that represents 2,700 members who work for Cincinnati Public Schools, and we have teachers at the Justice Center, 2020, the hospitals, all of the satellite programmings, auxiliary, so we represent people all over the city. We are working with ARROS in the CEJC, which is the Cincinnati Educational Justice Coalition, and we are using this time to educate people about the impact that Betsy DeVos is going to have on education. If you have seen, she wants to cut funding for healthy lunches at schools. They believe that kids, if they're poor and they get food stamps, that they can just pack their lunch and that's enough. But yet, at the same time, they also want to cut the food stamp program. So, really, none of it makes sense. We want to highlight the cuts to schools, and they are making cuts to schools so they can build the wall. And so, that is the funding. They are going to have to pay for that wall, and we need for people to contact their legislators and say, don't spend money building that wall. They're going to be voting on it soon.
Actually, Trump took it off the budget, and it's turfed till fall, he says. So
until fall.
It's out.
But they have not restored the cuts to education. And so that's a huge cut. They want to change how students, the Title I funds are distributed, and they want those funds to follow the child. And Title I was enacted in 1964 under ESEA for children of poverty, because we know there are sometimes extra things, and that's what we use to fund for reading specialists and for the class size reduction and some of those things. But with that, they want to just make all of that, they want the money to follow the child. So if Indian Hill has a child who's living in poverty, they would take that money to Indian Hill. And they don't want it for concentrations of poverty. Currently, the way it's set up is it goes to districts percentage-wise based on concentrations of poverty. And even in CPS, schools that have more poverty get more dollars because it goes for concentrated poverty, not for individual poverty. And so those dollars would be so minimized that it really would not impact the urban districts and rural districts who need it the most. Yes?
Could you talk a little bit about what challenges we're facing at the state level?
At the state level, they are talking about budget cuts. Cincinnati is unique with the funding formula because they consider us, even though we have some of the highest poverty in the nation, I think we're third or fourth now behind Detroit and Cleveland as far as concentrated high poverty for children. But because we still have property value and a millage point collects a certain amount in the levies, Cincinnati only gets about 42–44% from the state compared to Dayton that gets 85% and Cleveland that gets 84%. So we are getting half of what most of the other urban districts are getting. That's why we have to keep coming back to property owners for levies. So now currently property owners in Cincinnati pay 40%. And look at how many buildings are being built with abatements, which then we get a partial of that, but we don't get the whole amount. We have a lot of empowerment zones. There is enough money in this city to fund our schools, but the businesses won't go along with most of those changes to have fair funding for schools, locally or statewide.
Can you explain that? I apologize.
Explain the
Empowerment of why it works, why the funding isn't there.
The funding is not there because of the way the formula is. They don't really look at the number of children in poverty.
Right.
And so that's why we're only getting 42%, yet we have higher poverty for children than any other state in Ohio, or any other district in Ohio other than Cleveland. And so it all comes down to that fair funding formula, which has been declared unconstitutional 4 times. But they have never been forced to act on that. That was with the DeRoff case, and that goes back 20 years. Frankie?
Julie, could you speak to 2 things? So that people understand the 3rd grade guarantee, and a lot of people don't know what Common Core means.
Okay, I will address those 2, and then I want to address how much money comes out of CPS's budget so people really have an understanding of the impact this has. 1, the 3rd grade reading guarantee is a state law. Children have to pass the test to go to the 4th grade. Now, last year, Cincinnati had 96% passage of students who could pass the 4th grade. Yet we received a D on our report card. The report card does not measure how many children can read. The report card measures how many improvement plans were written for children.
That's right.
So if schools like Indian Hill, they have all of their kids who come in kindergarten ready, those kids don't have to be on an improvement plan. And so they're not rated. But schools that have higher poverty, where the kids come in less prepared and ready for kindergarten, those schools have the rating. And when you see that report card and you see, oh my God, CPS, we spent all that money and CPS's kids are a D, it's really not a measure of what students are performing at. The report card is set up, and it's set up against poor districts to make poor districts look like they're not performing and to look less successful than they are, so that it's easier to convince people that privatization is something that might be beneficial for those areas. And so with this report card, the high school graduation rates, not only do kids have to pass take all of these courses, which is 4 math, 4 reading, 3, it's a lot. They also now have to pass end of course exams that the kids and the teachers have never even seen. Well, they know that this is going to impact the suburban districts, and the suburban district legislators are like, hold on here, we don't want this is going to impact us. So now they're talking about how they're going to change it and put some other measures in place, that it isn't just based on end of course exams for kids for graduation. So the requirements are getting more difficult. The measures keep getting harder. They change every year. The tests have changed. There have been 3 different formats of testing in the last 4 years. There are no standards in the curriculum that align with the test because every test has different alignments of curriculum. And so it really, you're always chasing your tail trying to catch up because they make changes. That change didn't work, so let's hurry up and make another change. And then let's hurry up and make another change. And so it really is, it's really not a fair measure. Can we do better? Yes, we can do better. But I will say that in every school there are great, kids are learning and they're going to college. Last year, of the CPS graduates last year, 9 through the new My Tomorrow initiative, 96% of the graduates of CPS last year had an after plan, an after graduation plan. They were either enrolled in some type of trades program to do an apprenticeship. They were signed up for military. They were signed up for a 2-year or 4-year college, but 97% had a counselor who worked with them to get them to have an after graduation plan. Yes?
I have a question about the testing.
Okay.
Who writes the test, and are they the same from state to state or district to district?
In Ohio, the tests will be the same, but there are different types of versions. There was a paper pencil version and then an online version. The students in the districts that took the paper pencil version scored 20 points higher than the people on the across the board. They scored 20 points higher. And our kids have a greater digital divide. They don't all have computers in their homes, but yet the tests are on computers. And let me just tell you, even about that 3rd grade reading guarantee, so there's a lot of emphasis now on teaching keyboarding, teaching those computer skills, the technology, so that they can just take the tests. But so our computer labs are really becoming testing labs. And they will have, in 3rd grade, they may have 3 different reading passages, and then they have to answer extended responses that are evidence-based, and the kids can't toggle between the 3 different stories to go back to get the information. And so it's really difficult for kids. They're taking sometimes because they want an evidence from this story, an evidence from that story, but they can't. It's really difficult and cumbersome for kids for testing. So are we testing them on their knowledge or are we testing them on their computer skills? And to me, that doesn't seem like a fair way to do testing. Another question?
Yeah, just a comment. Some friends of mine who teach in the Mount Healthy City School said a number of the children there are taking these types of tests on their parents' cell phone because they don't have
They don't even have
laptops.
enough technology.
Right, so they're just sitting there doing this on the cell phone. Can you imagine that?
I know. So they have something, a space this big, and they have to try to read it and do all of that. Yes?
Well, and I help, my son's an educator in CPS. He's a 2nd grade teacher. And we have joined the program to give them a laptop. Sounds great, right? They don't have Wi-Fi at home. They can't get to the internet. So it doesn't help.
And so that's something that the city needs to think about. Can we do citywide internet and have wireless for everybody? I mean, because that would really reduce people's impediments to access to information, because everything is online now, and it's not easy for everybody to get to a library to get that information. There was another question?
You didn't answer the question about Common Core.
Oh, the Common Core. There are a lot of people now who are saying they're against the Common Core. The Common Core are the standards. They go deeper and there's less. Teachers don't have problems with the Common Core because for years we said there were way too many standards and you were only teaching a little bit each year and it was always spiraling back. Now, Common Core goes deeper and there's less and you teach for mastery. The problem are not the standards. The problem is the tests that are tied to the standards and the measures of the standards. And so when you start hearing things, well, that's Common Core, is it really the standards or is it the tests that you're really talking about? Because people get the two merged and combined. And that's really where the problem is. And they haven't given people even enough time to get up to par with the standards, with quality curriculum. When they say, oh, well, those Common Core, they're just teaching liberal ideas, they're reading from Time magazine. Well, there's a lot more. There's a lot more that they can choose from anything, really. I mean, they have to read a lot of nonfiction, because in the world you have to learn how to read nonfiction and read for the detail. That is totally different than just reading fiction. Does that mean that we're not going to teach fictional novels and do novel studies? No, but there will be reading using non-fiction in science and social studies and current affairs and reading in a different level that is more evidence-based. Yes?
What is Kasich saying about this? Our beloved, our beloved governor.
He's on the View today.
He's on The View today?
Yeah.
What did he say? I heard he was on CNN.
I only saw a brief section where Whoopi Goldberg was asking him about, you know, the divisiveness in the country and all of this and the other, and he said, well, you see the women rallying, you see the science rally, we've got everybody activated now. They're all being activated.
Yeah, they're being activated
Yeah.
because they're fearful of what's going to happen next week.
Right.
Yes?
Oh, just a couple of comments.
Okay.
I live in the, actually I pay property taxes in Winton Woods. And of course, we passed our school levy, and they're gonna build new schools.
It's the best thing that you can do for the
But
investment
here's
in your
the
property.
here, you know, what I want to say
Yeah.
too is, the principal they have there for about 3 years, guess what he did? He started a women's rowing team, you know, like they row.
Yeah.
And he also started another a lacrosse team with the boys. Why? If every public school did that, that's where all the big scholarships are on these real small sports. I mean, you're talking about scholarships to Harvard, Yale, you know. They're on these minor sports, and he started those two teams this year. I just want to tell you some things that are nice going on. The other thing, our Kiwanis, we volunteer right across the street here, free store.
Computers
We
and
pack,
crayons.
no, we pack, well, no, it's a free store.
Oh, okay.
The free store is, you know, it's a huge operation, but just so you know, you might want to think about any group you have or friends, to just call over there and tell them you want to volunteer, because we pack out, it's amazing, I don't know the number, but it's in the thousands and thousands of weekend lunches for poor children. Right across the street. So if you're interested in feeding the poor students, go across the street and volunteer.
And that program is wonderful, and that is sometimes the only food some of the kids have on the weekends.
This is a little off the wall question, but I used to work with textbooks, and I discovered that the textbooks are all written by Republicans down in Texas. This is true.
That's
Still
true.
true.
That's still true.
And they are published as the tests are by McGraw-Hill.
Yes.
And the McGraws were very, very close friends of the Bushes. So, you know, they're hitting us from every side. And they're going to make, the last I heard, they're going to say that instead of slavery, we had immigration.
Yeah, that's what, yes, that was immigration.
Now it's immigration. Oh, yeah.
And they're trying to rewrite history through some of those textbooks, and it's becoming more and more conservative. So we, in CPS, they have a lot more flexibility. The students, we have, through the My Tomorrow, they have developed in a lot of the schools student councils, and they are saying, and they are calling in those assistant superintendents, and they're saying, we want more studies for social studies, African American studies, women's studies, all of the different studies that we had in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. But remember Gates, when he came in and offered money to all of these schools to have the small school structure, and it was called the small high school model? What that did was, because you have small high schools that are no longer comprehensive, it took away many of the electives. It took away many of those extra courses that kids loved. It took away access to music, art, PE, AP classes. And so now CPS, in just the last few years, remember how they merged Withrow back together? They had 2 schools there, and they merged them back together, 3 schools. They merged, West High was 2 different campuses. They merged them back together. So they are now adding AP classes in every building so students have more access, because those course offerings were discriminatory against poor children. And so they thought that that small model was so wonderful, but it was really not for kids. It was easier and it was smaller, but there were way less course offerings. And that came out of that whole reform model from Gates. The last thing I do want to say, and I said that I would follow up with Frankie and I didn't get to it. When you ask, how much money do you think comes out of the CPS budget for charters and vouchers per year? And CPS has a $500 million budget annually. How much money, who wants to guess, how much money comes out of the budget directly and passes through the district and on out to vouchers and charters? Any guesses? A third. Over $100 million a year. 20%.
And it's down from what it's been.
And it's down from what it's been in the past. But $100 million a year leaves the district for way less than 20% of the kids. And the overhead would be no more than what it is now for CPS. So that would be dollars going directly for services for kids, because overall dollars don't increase. I think when people hear that amount of money and the impact that that's having on the kids who are still in our district, and they want that to even grow, think of what it could do to our students in the future. Because those are courses that are course offerings, and it's just really, people don't think about it. There is no accountability for vouchers and charters. Every charter in this city is a for-profit charter. They are not paying the money for services for kids. They're not paying the money for teachers. They are doing whatever is the cheapest. There is corruption with nepotism and cronyism. They will pay, one high school will pay a superintendent for that school. One school will have a superintendent and a principal. That superintendent makes more than Mary Ronan, who's superintendent of CPS. The principal will make more than what Jeff Brokamp makes as principal of Walnut Hills, with 3,000 students and #1 in the state and in the top 10 in the nation. And their teachers are making half. They're living in poverty. Most of them are making less. Their son-in-law might be the custodian, making 6 figures more than our principals make. Their secretary could be their daughter, who is making more than principals make. But there's no accountability, there's no transparency. You really can't see their budget, so you don't know really how they're spending their money unless they say they have public meetings, but you can never find them. I try, and you cannot find them. So when you think about the negative impact financially and the little bit of accountability, it's almost shocking to me that the Republicans push that agenda when they are so fiscally conservative? You would think that they want the public oversight.
Judy, thank you.
Thank you.
Judy,
Oh,
thank you for such comprehensive comments. You know, I should say for strategically, we shouldn't say it's a Trump program, Trump Republican.
Trump
Because
Republican.
it's both.
It is
And
both.
we need to identify it.
Yes.
The other thing is, I noticed the Ford Institute, that's a very conservative institute, and they say that charter schools are lousy.
Yes.
That's important.
Yes, and that's what's causing students to have, not be successful. Yes?
Is the enrollment going up?
The enrollment is going up, and that's one of the difficulties that CPS is having, because we don't get more dollars, really, that many more dollars from the state. But we were slated, when the facility master plan started, at this time CPS was predicted to have 26,000 students, and we have over 35,000 students. So we are one of the very few urbans in the whole country who is growing and not shrinking. And succeeding.
Julie,
Yes.
what's the, I heard somebody say it, but what's the cost per student for charter school versus CPS?
I don't know that.
I thought somebody said that. in one of those
It's
meetings.
different at every school, but when you look at, I do know this. CPS overhead is about, I think 8% of the budget for central office overhead. When you go into a lot of the charter schools, their administrative overhead is sometimes 40 or 50% of their budget. And CPS, you have to remember, of that CPS budget, CPS funds every single transportation cost for everybody within the boundary lines. If they, no matter where they go to school, if anybody, private schools, CPS provides transportation. CPS has, I think, they have more routes than Metro. They serve food to everybody, which they don't do in a lot of the charters don't even offer lunch to kids. CPS serves 50 to 70,000 meals per day, more than all of the restaurants in Cincinnati combined. And we also have all of the special needs students, especially those with the most severe. We have kids who go to school who are medically fragile, and they have, there are even kids who are transported to school by ambulance because of how medically fragile they are. And so to compare the dollars, it's really difficult for a breakdown because you're not comparing apples to apples. But I do know regular ed, CPS spends less on regular ed than what other schools usually spend. So, any other questions? Liz, do you have questions? Liz? Julie, you are wonderful, and we're happy to have you representing our teachers and helping our kids meet the challenges of the future. You are wonderful. Thank you so much for presenting today. I have to tell you a story. Well, we want to introduce Ms. Eberhard. Ms. Eberhard, want to say hello?
Yeah, I'm going to correct you there. I'm Dr. Janet Eberhard. Thank you so very much. You all see me every week, and I hope that you and I don't take each other for granted because you see me every week. I love coming here. I love seeing you, and your speakers are opening my world every single time. I hope you all feel that way. It's like, oh my gosh, I never thought of it that way. And that's what I want to do. I want to listen, and that's why I'm here.
Dr. Eberhard is running in Winstrup's district.
Yeah. This former gynecologic surgeon is going to boot that podiatrist. All
I want to tell you a two-part story, and I hate to keep the meeting in.
Can I ask her one more question? I wanted to ask her why she ran.
Joan, the reason I ran, and many of you already know this, is because last year when imposter Democrat, when an imposter Democrat named William R. Smith beat the actual Democrat, Ronnie Richards, who I was working on his campaign, I was mad. I was mad that William R. Smith, with his generic, very powerful generic name, there's a D beside it, for at least the third time, had interfered with my voting rights and yours too. And that anger turned into a write-in campaign. Many of you worked your hearts out for me, and I appreciate it so much. That write-in campaign allowed me to build a network across District 2, which comes from, well, a little north and east of here, Norwood to Chillicothe and Portsmouth. And that network allowed me to stop Smith this year from well, we still have more time, but basically, Smith will not be running because we pulled his petitions. We found out who the circulator was. The circulator was the same in 12, 15, 16, and I've spoken with this circulator at length, sat down with him, and he will not be circulating for Smith again. And I'm going to keep that relationship going. And he's an elderly gentleman and thinks I'm a hot chick, so we're taking advantage of that situation. We're taking advantage of that situation, and we're going to keep meeting with that guy. Thank you so much. All right, so great meeting with you, and I want to make sure each of you has a card, a gateway to my website. We're at the point where there's a big old donate button on my website, and I'm hoping you'll press it often. Thanks so much.
Alberta. I wanted to tell you about our coming speakers, talking about opening up our minds. This coming week, we have Tim Burke. He's the Hamilton County Democratic Chair of the Democratic Party. He's going to be here on Election Day, and if he doesn't show up, you will get my presentation on gerrymandering. And next time, I will know to take the cap off the projector. Yeah. Oh, we have another question?
I'll be quick. I just want to introduce myself. I'm Michelle Dillington. I'm running for Cincinnati City Council. I was endorsed by the Democrats, thank you, back in 2013. I'm from Kennedy Heights. I'm a social worker professionally. Been working with the teachers union on this ed justice work for some years. But just real brief, tomorrow night the Democratic Party will be casting their vote to support the nomination committee's recommendation, and I have been recommended to be endorsed as a Democrat again. So hopefully that'll stick, and next time I see you when I come visit, I'll be an endorsed Democrat, which is important. But thank you, and I'll leave my card and I'll stay after. Nice to meet you.
Excellent. Following Election Day, and remember that voting is already open. Please vote if you can, if your community is voting. Springfield Township is not, but because we don't have anything in the primary. But following Election Day, when we have Tim Burke, we're going to have Tomorrow's Place, Human Trafficking. That's got to be interesting. I like May 16th. We're having group singing protest songs by the Queen City Volunteers, followed by Dr. Pepper, who's coming in, or David Pepper, sorry. David Pepper. It started with a D. David Pepper, party chair. He's the party chair of the whole Ohio Democratic Party.
Have him bring his mother. I love his mother.
I'll ask him about his mother. And then on May 30th, we have the heroin epidemic in Hamilton County with Sergeant Michael Steers and Sheriff Jim Neal. Yeah, and then one of my favorites, and I had to change all my airplane tickets to be here. Mary Ronan is coming, because she's the superintendent of Cincinnati Public Schools. So we have quite the time. She's retiring too. My brother.